So George now explained their position. They're not surrendered souls. They're nice men. They allow Prabhupada to stay there and send their Rolls Royce to pick him up. They're helping the devotees get the temple. So they made a record of the devotees chanting Hare Krishna went to #1. So they're nice people, but they haven't come to the point of surrendering and accepting that Prabhupada is the real thing, the real representative of God. They're not there yet. And they're being respected all over the world, so they have a lot, all that fame and everything, that can be seen as an obstacle to, and to approach a saintly person, you have to be humble. You have to be humble. So anyway, but George explained their position. Prabhupada said, that's all right. If you believe that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, if that is your version, then you have to see who is most addicted to Krishna. If you're saying that you think Krishna is God, then you have to see who is most addicted to Krishna, who is a lover of Krishna. These people, these boys and girls, they are 24 hours chanting Krishna name. 24 hours. And another person, he has not even said a single word Krishna. So, how can he become a devotee of Krishna? How can he, who does not utter even the name of Krishna, how can he become a representative of Krishna? If Krishna is authority, and that is accepted by everyone, therefore, if Krishna is accepted as authority, therefore those who are directly addicted to Krishna, they are also authorities. Prabhupada's logic is solid. And Krishna he will explain later that all the acharyas in India, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, even Shankaracharya, listening to one day, Prabhupada said, he was making this point, and he said, even Shankaracharya, who's the Mayavad, impersonalist philosopher, even he wrote a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and he says, Krishna is the original Narayan, and Narayana Paro Abhyakta. Narayan is above, beyond this material world. And Prabhupada says, and later on in his commentary, he said, and this Krishna is the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. So he recognized, he says, Sabhagavan, Sayam, even him. Although he is preaching Maya impossible philosophy, he accepted that Krishna is Bhagavan. So everyone, all the great, and Shankaracharya was certainly one of the great teachers in India. He drove Buddhism out of India and re-established the Vedas to come back in. So he's a big person. But the Mayavad philosophy was a little short. But even he accepts Krishna. So Prabhupada said, all people, authorities, great authorities, have accepted Krishna. So if you, and you seem to, they're saying, they're not doubting that Krishna is God. That's what George said, we're not doubting. But we're just trying to find out who is the authority on that. So Prabhupada's point was, all these other Gitas, they haven't produced a devotee. They don't chant, they don't recommend anybody to chant or nothing. So he says, yeah, you should find out who is most addicted to Krishna. It's like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was addicted. In the verse we learned, Ya Maya Vigrahaya Hema Padibhya Chavishudaraya Tasmai Maha Prema Rasa Pradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. So yeah, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his guru, he really is the authority on Krishna. He's Krishna himself, so who can know better? And those who follow him, they are the authority. They have love for Krishna. But all these other people who promote commentaries on Gita, they write Bhagavad Gita and Krishna disappears. He's not prominent. And he's the speaker of Bhagavad Gita. But they use it as a stepping stone to present their ideas. They know Bhagavad Gita is popular, so if they have something they want to say, they use Bhagavad Gita to say their nonsense. So people will think, oh, he's written Bhagavad Gita. It's just a technique, a ploy to get people to read their books. But nothing came from it. Nothing. So, after more than an hour of conversation, wow, they got a lot of time, Prabhupada. After more than an hour of conversation, Prabhupada then distributed some prasadam to John, George, and Yoko, and the few disciples that were in the room. He taught that if these Shrestas, leading men, if they were to take up Krishna consciousness, that would be good for them and for many others also, because they're so influential. He had done his duty and provided them with the opportunity. Now it was Krishna's message, and for them to accept it or not, it was up to them. Prabhupada had done his duty, he spoke it purely, unadulterated. Now it's up to them. John got up and said he had something to do, and he excused himself. And as everyone was leaving, Yoko, walking down the stairs, turned to John and said, "Look at how simply he is living. Do you think you could live like that?" Prabhupada, he never changed. You know, people couldn't imagine. Prabhupada was a leader of a big movement, temples. You know, by the time he left, it was over 100 temples. And yet, Prabhupada lived out of a suitcase. He was traveling constantly, going from temple to temple around the world. And he would have in his suitcase like 3 sets of clothes. You know, he lived simple. He didn't change. It was quite an example. Whatever Krishna provided, he was happy with that. I think I can read one paragraph and then stop. Later that evening, Prabhupada sat with his 3 couples, the devotees he had sent from America, Shamsundar and Malati, Gurudas and Jamuna, Mukunda and Janaki. After a year of separation, they were now happy with Prabhupada, and he was happy to be with them also. It's mutual. The love they shared and their mutual satisfaction at being together was based on a unifying desire to establish Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement in this important city of London. Now that Prabhupada had come to London, their work would not slacken. It would increase under his expert guidance. Prabhupada could daily instruct the men on organizing more London preaching, and they could report to him as necessary, and the women could also directly serve him, cleaning his quarters, washing and ironing his laundry, and cooking his meals. He said to them, "No one can afford a house like this," in John Lennon's house. "No one can afford a house like this in England anymore. England has gone down. But now these young boys own a place like this, and we are here." Shyamasundar replied, "Prabhupada, our record sold 50,000 copies yesterday." Prabhupada's eyes open wide and says, "Oh, very big business." Prabhupada said that their money and energy should go towards opening the temple in the city. Now they were living comfortably on this aristocratic estate in the suburbs, John Lennon's place in Ascot. And certainly they should try to involve these important celebrities in Krishna consciousness as far as possible. But their main business should be to open a temple in the city. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he had preferred to establish temples in the city where the people were. Prabhupada's simply following. Of course, if John were to give this place to the devotees, they could maintain it and maintain cows and cultivate the land because it's a big estate. Just as the devotees are doing in New Vrindavan. They had a lot of acreage there. But that would be a different matter. They will have to see what Krishna desired. Prabhupada was sorry that some of his disciples were obliged to work full-time to earn money for renovating the estate. Or to work full-time renovating the estate. They were working on John's estate, you know, in exchange for allowing them to stay there and Prabhupada to stay. It wasn't for free, he had them working. So Prabhupada was sorry about that. He said, actually, Brahmins and Vaishnavas have the serious work of cultivating spiritual knowledge and teaching it to others, and therefore they deserve the respect and support of the rest of society. But they should tolerate this it is only a temporary situation. Prabhupada then spoke with Shyamasundar and Mukunda and Gurudas about their struggle to get housing permits and renovate the temple downtown. Shyamasundar had been right, Prabhupada said, to just begin renovating the temple, and Krishna would protect their investment. When Prabhupada learned that they had secured a series of public lectures that would commit him to staying 3 months in London, they were ambitious. He smiled and he said, "I'll be glad to stay and preach in England for as long as it takes to open the London temple." Prabhupada commended his 6 London pioneers on succeeding where even his sannyasi godbrothers had failed. Yeah, many years before, Bhaktisiddhanta had sent 2 or 3 sannyasis to London, and they accomplished practically nothing. And now these 3 grihasthas, young, were accomplishing so much. He told them, because they were chanting Hare Krishna with faith, he's telling the devotees, therefore you have succeeded. So everything comes from it, chanting. So because you have chanted Hare Krishna with faith, therefore you have succeeded. His devotees were not great scholars or renunciants, but they had faith in the holy name and the order of their spiritual master. Prabhupada said that he also was not a great scholar, but he had staunch faith, which is the real requirement for spiritual success. That's the other verse you're learning. Yasya deve parabhakti tagura tasyaita katita hyata prakashante mahatmana. This is a confirmation. This is the requirement. So a devotee could go to any place and accomplish many things. But unless he was free of material motives, he would not be able to implant the seed of bhakti into the hearts of others. Prabhupada cited Shivananda, one of his early disciples, who had gone alone to Hamburg, Germany, and tried his best, only with faith in his spiritual master. And now Krishna was blessing Shivananda with a little success. They now had a storefront temple, many newly recruited devotees, even an interested professor, and many other guests coming and chanting. So even one lone preacher could accomplish many things for Krishna, provided the preacher was free from sense gratification and the desires for profit, adoration, and distinction. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.